Hi, everyone. So it's me again, Fasieh. Thank you so much. So far, what an insightful conversation we've been having. Lots of insights for all of you HR enthusiasts and professionals out there. So this is a networking break. So imagine what COVID has done to us. Normally, when we would say, it's a break time, it's networking, what would we be doing? We will be exchanging our cards, visiting cards. There is no use of a visiting card anymore. Imagine an entire paradigm shift. In a normal networking break, we will crack those cards open. I mean, I would crack mine. It had two pieces in it. And hi, I'm Fasieh. Pleased to meet you. Who are you? What do you do that? How do you do that when you are in a virtual room like this in a summit? Well, you put up your LinkedIn profile. You share your LinkedIn profile to introduce yourself to others and follow them. How do you follow them? Don't just send an ad request. Put in a small message how you met them, how you heard their talk at the HR summit, how you were inspired, and how you want to learn more or be part of this conversation, and probably explore opportunities for collaboration. So let's have your LinkedIn profiles in the chat section, guys. So those of you who want to connect, and there's so many of you online from lots of different countries, different backgrounds, different functional expertise, and different stages in your career, let's have people connect with you. So I would like to see who's putting in their profile links here. There you go. I do see names, but do share your profile link. So this is one of the ways to connect, to explore mutual collaboration areas, to see where people have worked, what they have done, how you can learn from them, how you can potentially collaborate, and crack the conversation open with something that you heard today. That's a good icebreaker. Send them a message. Keep them coming. So far, I've seen few. Great. So while we carry the conversation forward, you keep popping up those LinkedIn profile links in the chat section so people can connect. And as you'll see, there's a poll here as well. So we took certain questions as part of the initial survey when we were actually gathering data, that what are the challenges that the HR world faces these days? And what are those HRM issues that the world wants to know about or wants to solve? And up came these 5 or 6 areas which were of a lot of interest for the professionals, and somewhat challenges as well that are faced by the professionals and by the employees to whom they impact actually. So we've put them up in the poll section. I would request the team to kindly take the polls live now. And the questions that you vote most for will be now asked in the Q&A section that we're just about to enter into in a few minutes. And we'll also take your questions, and I see lots of them in the question and answer section. So it doesn't mean that you will not have the chance to ask what you want. Because of the paucity of time, I do see there are lots of questions. Just go through it, go through the list. And if you believe what you're asking has been asked by someone else, just vote that. And whoever has the most votes, we'll ask those questions from the question answer section and a few from the poll section that you already see right now in front of you. And I really appreciate the fact that there's so many diverse backgrounds reflected here today in the audience. And this is the beauty. When you say you're networking, you're actually communicating and learning with so many different people, right? I see people here from the graphics and fashion fraternity, from textile designing. That's amazing. Yeah, and banking, FMCGs. Yes, that's great. So do we have the polls going? Brilliant. Okay, so as we move on, and thank you for sharing all those LinkedIn profiles. And as we move on to our next session and we welcome our next panelists, I would like to request that we have this polls finished, or are people still polling in? Okay, people are still polling in. That's great. So I would like to now call upon Madiha Khalid. She's Director HR at Shell, and Mr. Rizwan Dalia, the Chief People Officer at K Electric. Can we have them on the stage, please? They're all on the stage. Brilliant. Hi, both of you. How are you? Good afternoon.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. I'm well. How are you?
Assalamualaikum, Madiha. Assalamualaikum, Fasieh. How are you both? And how
Walaikum
is everyone?
assalam. Yes, alhamdulillah, all well, and I hope both of you are keeping safe and sound. And today you're enjoying the summit, and you have heard some, I'm sure, great insights, and lots of questions are piling up here that I would be now sending your way. So
Excellent. Looking forward.
thank you so much. So let's now start with the polls that we have here. And clearly, the question that has been voted most to be asked for is the challenges for adopting agile framework, agile working model, and the potential solutions. May I ask you, Madiha, to please answer this? What are those challenges in the agile working model that the
Sure.
HR world faces?
Sure. So I think before we talk about an agile working model, we have to talk about an agile mindset first, because models can
Right.
only be implemented or can be adopted if the mindset is there. And I think one thing that this pandemic has taught us is the agility of not just people, but also businesses and the environment that we're in. So the challenge, obviously, I think the first challenge would be whether the culture or whether the mindset is agile, or is even recognizing that there is a need to be more agile. That's the first challenge, I would say. Once you've recognized that that challenge is there, I think the biggest other challenge is the investment in technology that agility requires. Because you can't have an agile model without having the right IT platform support that. So again, giving an example of COVID-19, um, we had no choice but to work from home. We were in a lockdown situation. And if companies or organizations didn't have the technological backbone to enable employees to connect from home, then of course, those were some of the biggest challenges that they were facing, that how do they get their people on the same network as the rest of the organization. So I would say in a nutshell, बहुत सारे challenges हैं, मगर सबसे पहला वाला mindset का है. I think until companies are pushed and forced into looking at new and different models, it doesn't come naturally unless you are uh, in a sector which is primarily driven by agility, like your tech sector or your mobile sector. Then that's something that would come naturally, but most likely it will not. So the first step is the culture piece. The second step is that you have the capital and the investment, and then the belief to invest in the technology that supports agile working. Those would be, I would say, the two biggest challenges. And I'll leave the most difficult part of the question for my partner here, Rizwan. Maybe he can talk about some of the potential solutions.
And before you answer this, Rizwan, I have this question that Madiha has now sort of highlighted during her response. Who is responsible for this mindset? How do you bring in this agile mindset? Is it the HR responsibility? Agile framework and agile mindset so far were talk of the town for the tech world. But that's no more the case. It is being now practiced by multinationals, by local companies across different sectors and industries. So how do you instill this mindset? Does it have to start from the top? Which functional domain has to initiate this? And then how do you ensure that it is practiced? So some challenges along those lines as well, if you'd like to add to your answer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Fasieh, and thank you, Madiha, for this opportunity. So I actually agree with you that it comes from the mindset first. And regarding the potential solutions, I would, for one, would want the organization to be more imaginative about what they do. And just like the fiction movies we see, whatever we saw 15, 20 years back is now reality. In our childhood, we saw one person talking to his car through his watch, and now we all do it. So businesses and specifically HR have to be imaginative about what has to come. And that is again comes to the mindset. And if you have the right kind of mindset, and you welcome the imaginative thinking from the employees across the organization, then obviously it becomes easy to get the organization ready for the future. And Fasieh, again, you're right, it comes from the top, and the leadership, and obviously HR is part of it. The top leadership has to be cognizant of the fact that the world has actually changed. A number of things which we used to think as some kind of fiction have all become reality, and the leadership has to drive all this. And the potential solutions, yes, it's not only IT who has to enable the organization. The users actually will have to ask for it, will have to demand for it. Just like people demand headcount or training or other things from HR, all the whole organization should be in fact demanding for it, and not waiting for the respective departments to come out with solution. Everybody will have to work towards it and contribute.
Excellent. Thank you. And I believe you've summed it well, that first is the mindset, then comes infrastructure or the wherewithal to instill that mindset and to make sure that you have the capacity. And then comes this policy, which will bring the change. And the policy has to have the component of persistence and perseverance in it, and the ability to be flexible, to be adaptive, and to be open to take on these challenges. Speaking of challenges, one of the greater challenges that we face today is that we're going back to work. There was this huge, big jolt of COVID, which gave us a huge nudge. There are different theories about it, whether is it a paradigm shift, has actually the behavior of organizations towards their employees in looking at the unit of economics towards that dollar amount, or now realizing that it is that human which creates that unit of economics. Has that shift happened? And as people are now going back to work, offices are opening up, there's a shift in terms of the policies, in terms of the culture, and there will be certain regulations as well. And clearly that is now the most voted poll question as well. What are the expected trends in HR management post-COVID? So I would request again, Rizwan, you to please, if you could answer, and then I'll go to Madiha.
So again, it goes back to the mindset and how we react to the offices opening up again. And the more you keep telling people that the pandemic is not over and there can be a relapse, still, in fact, in Pakistan, we see people not taking much care now as far as public places are concerned. So the general tendency, or maybe the tendency in Pakistan, is that we forget very quickly, and we have short-term memories. So if we want to change, if we want to ever change the way we work, then we'll have to train our mind that maybe the pandemic is for life, even if it goes out. But the mindset or the way or the new things it gave us are for life. And if we have to stay true to the commitments we made during the pandemic time, then we'll have to think like the pandemic is not over, and the new practices and the new things that came in our life, which were efficient, which were good, and which we always wanted to happen, should not go away. So this is one thing that should happen going forward. And again, you talked about policy, so I just wanted to touch upon that the agility also demands frequent change in policies as well. So gone are the days when you would develop a policy or a procedure and it is there for the next 5 or 10 years. That's not going to happen. So the agility should also come in terms of policy making as well, and whereby the role of HR is very important, that they have to be adaptive of the change and make as many changes as possible, which is reflective of the challenges. And again, the way most of the good organization, caring organization have looked towards their employees. Yes, the last 5-6 months, in fact, were good. A number of organizations like KE, like Shell, like other employers have shown a lot of empathy towards their workers, their low workers, their executives, people working in the field, people working at home, and that should remain. That we should always think that fine, this is something good that we have learned. And as HR, fine, there are priorities, there are the challenges, there are business priorities. However, this is for HR to ensure that to keep reminding the top leadership, mostly, that the good things that we have done, that should continue. The way we looked at our people during this pandemic, that is the way to look at them for the whole life.
Excellent. That's a very, very nice and thoughtful way to look at to the employees at the team who actually contributes towards everything that a business is known to be successful for. Madiha, some great challenges that have been shared, by Rizwan, but there are many others as well. I'm sure that you guys have faced. How do you address this? For instance, people are concerned, as he's saying, they're going back to work. What if they catch it again? What if they carry something back home with some person who might be vulnerable, parents or anyone else at home? The other thing is that people are not taking it seriously. Fair enough. What about many of the challenges in terms of data privacy, security that were highlighted when people were being monitored remotely, and then motivating the team who was actually working remotely was also a bigger challenge. Now they're coming back, but many people have said different statistics and surveys showed that the productivity increased during work from home, which means fluff was identified. What was fluff? Was the social interaction, the human touch identified as fluff? Was people meeting in different short, intervals, sipping coffee together and having tea was fluff? Is it not necessary? Many of the challenges. So yeah, your take on this and your expectations as people coming back to work.
थैंक यू फसी एंड ये टॉपिक इतना रिच है कि इसके ऊपर अगर हम एक सेपरेट समिट भी करें तो आई डोंट थिंक विल बी एबल टू कवर इट. I saw some of the questions that came in, and I think there were about 300 questions submitted, जिसमें से almost 200 were related to COVID and different shades of COVID. It wasn't the same question, but I think कि इसके ऊपर बहुत कुछ हम शेयर कर सकते हैं और एक दूसरे से सीख सकते हैं. तो आपका सवाल स्पेसिफिक है अबाउट स्टाफ रिटर्निंग टू द ऑफिस, एंड आई वुड से कि एचआर का रोल हमेशा से बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट रहा है इन सेटिंग अप ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस फॉर सक्सेस. हम हमेशा ये बात करते हैं कि डिजिटलाइजेशन का एरा आ रहा है, एआई का एरा आ रहा है, एनालिटिक्स है, एंड एचआर इज नो लॉन्गर गोइंग टू बी रेलेवेंट. बट आई वुड से दैट एचआर इज एंड एचआर विल ऑलवेज रिमेन रेलेवेंट बिकॉज वी हैव अ ड्यूटी ऑफ केयर, and duty of care not just to the organization but also to the employees. And when we talk about duty of care, तो जो lockdown या जो work from home के अंदर the role that we played to show duty of care to our employees, the same has to continue when we are welcoming back to the site, which means
Excellent.
that HR has to drive with the health officials that they have within the company, with the top management, with the line leaders, to ensure कि जो हमारे offices हैं वो एक safe environment है for people to come back to work and be productive at work. And for those who still do not wish to come for whatever reason, there are working mothers, there are people who are caregivers for their extended family and can genuinely not join back the workforce. उनको flexibility दी जाए कि वो work from home continue करें, meaning working from office should remain optional as long as people believe that the risk of getting infected is there. So the first step is obviously how do you prepare your work site so that you eliminate the chances of other people contracting the virus, people not infecting each other. Then making sure that when people don't follow the rules or break the rules, there is coaching and guidance for them because that helps in keeping everyone safe. The third part is what about those people who don't want to come for whatever reason, child care support nahi hai, daycare office ka band hai, XYZ. Those should then allowed to be comfortable to operate from home. And if they are working from home, then they should be given the right equipment and the tools to be able to be productive from home. और इसमें आपने बहुत अच्छी बात की थी about policy making. And रिजवान ने भी कहा कि policy जो है वो सारी जिंदगी के लिए नहीं बनती है, because then that becomes a Bible or a religious book. Policies are supposed to be flexible and supposed to meet the demands of the time. And मैं आपको बहुत एक real example दूं. जब ये work from home हुआ, हमारे बहुत सारे employees की request आई कि जी हमें अपनी हमारी चेयर और हमारी टेबल्स एंड इक्विपमेंट जो है वो ergonomic है ऑफिस का, और घर के अंदर we don't have that ergonomic equipment. एंड उस वक्त शेल ने एक बहुत tough stance लिया था कि हम office equipment घर नहीं भेजेंगे, because when we have to welcome people back, then it will be very difficult to keep track of कि कौन सी table और कौन सी chair कहाँ गई है. But just a few months into the lockdown, we re-looked at that stance, and then we allowed for people. We gave an allowance. Basically, first people had to do an ergonomic survey to determine whether they need a chair or a table or a big monitor or whatever they need. And on that basis, there was a allowance given to people कि आप जाएं जाके अपनी चीजें खरीदें, which will help you do your job from home. And then you can maintain that office. There was no expectation कि ये आपने return करना है once you go back to the office. So that's what I mean about, HR playing the role um, of doing the duty of care. And the duty of care continues for the employees, once they are back at work, whether they are working from home, and the duty of care to the company to make sure that the company succeeds and is robust enough to compete in the future. Very long answer, but ये topic बहुत interesting है, so difficult to stop.
I absolutely agree with you, because there is so much that has to be done. At the end of the day, we're working for humans, right?
Yeah.
And duty of care, as you mentioned, is a very important aspect that has to look at so many different things. It was not a regular work from home where you could go and take a cozy corner in your home and turn it into an office and go and say, hey, I'm more productive than I was ever before, because there was no domestic support available. Your kids are home, your spouse is home, and everybody's working, everybody's doing something. Your kids are taking their classes online on Zoom. You have more responsibilities than they were before. And now somehow people around you, your colleagues, your co-workers, other stakeholders, assume you're available all the time because you're online. You're never before online in the cyber world than you are now. So very different challenges, and agree there's a topic which we can go on and on into lots of depths and debate about it. But I really, really appreciate lots of people asking the questions of whether the pendulum has swung, whether the paradigm shift has happened in terms of the behavior. And clearly this is very important, that it's not happened entirely, but probably a hybrid of some people working from home some days and some going back at work. This hybrid would exist mostly now. Moving on to the question section, we have lots of interesting questions that people have upvoted for. I'm going to ask a few. And those of you who really want your questions to be asked, make sure you upvote the ones that you find more interesting. And before I move on to the last session that I have, the one key takeaway, I'll ask a few questions here. So one question which I believe is very interesting is, which initiative did you feel was not successful and needed to be tweaked or changed to increase employee effectiveness and business in this situation? This question is by Zara from Telenor. Zara, if I may say that what Madiha just answered is a response to this question, right? Because what they just said about the ergonomic furniture being not available earlier and the policy being an adaptive and ever-changing document was evolved actually to address that concern. Would you like to answer this, Rizwan, if you have any initiative that you feel was successful, not successful, and needed to be tweaked?
Yeah, we have many offices across the city, and most of them are required to be operated 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day. And there are staff canteens there, and most of our labor have their food there. So initially, there was a talk that we give a certain allowance to them and encourage them to get their food from their houses. However, very quickly, within a week or so, we came to realize that no, if this is not full care. We are just giving money and allowing them to do whatever they want with the money, and some people will get it from home and some will not. So the ultimate decision was that all across the city we operate around 40 canteens, staff canteens for our people, mostly labor, and we provided free of cost. We started providing free of cost food to them 24 hours across the city, and that was a major game changer in my view, because the employees, and especially those who were in the field, and at the most challenging times, the initial lockdown period, when everybody was afraid of the situation and getting infected, the most challenging times were there, and the people really appreciated that gesture from the company, and we felt as leadership really good by providing that facility to all the labor.
Excellent.
That's
Thank you.
one thing that I mentioned here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for highlighting. That's such a great gesture. So many companies brought in this value, as you guys were earlier mentioning, of empathy as something that every company or corporate cherishes. And you want your employees to be part of it. And probably that's the reason as well that productivity increased a lot, because people actually felt more being part of the organization than they were ever before. So this is very nice. Another question, which is very interesting and a challenge that actually all of us face, is the performance management. How do you monitor performance? How do you rate this when you are not actually physically present? And many a times this was actually from the optics. Jo dikhta hai wo bikhta hai. So people are busy, there are meetings, there are lots of things happening. You're doing lots of marketing activities, you're doing promos, you're doing events. Nothing of that sort is happening. Now people are online, they're in lots of Zoom meetings, they're doing emails in and out. How do you manage and measure performances? Different people have different approaches. Some had KPIs and OKRs already in place. Some had somewhat more tangible measures actually to measure performance. So the question is that performance management system for work from home employees is a challenge. How to cope up with it, and what tools are available? Madiha, would you like to please answer this first?
Yeah, sure. So I'll reiterate, Fasi, what you've said. What gets measured gets done. And
Yep.
I see a lot of organizations measuring the time that people are spending at the workplace as a direct correlation of performance management. So if you say 9 to 5 hours आपने office में गुजारने हैं, that is meant to be a measure of how good somebody has performed or how great that they've done. So what will happen in a scenario like that is that people will give you the time. They'll clock in 9 o'clock and they'll clock out at 5 o'clock. But what they do during that time is still debatable. So one of the best models for performance management is actually having very clear and very simple alignment on what the individual needs to deliver during the year. And I believe that the simpler it is and the more easier it is to remember, the easier the conversation on performance would be. And you wouldn't look for other ambiguous areas to determine performance. So I can give an example of Shell, and that's such a simple model that any company can adopt that. We have a model which is called 5+3. Five are
Okay.
your core job related goals for the year, and three are your foundational goals. You can say table stake. For example, the safety and well-being of employees, or ethics and ethical practices, etc. So 5+3 in total would be the 8 things you need to deliver in the year. You have a crisp conversation with your boss to say, these are the deliverables. What does good look like? Meaning, what is the success criteria? If I've done it, how will I know that I've done it well? So that's the on target measure. And then what would it look like if I've overachieved that target? So let's say agar meri target hai that I have to induct more women in the workplace. My on target goal would look like that 50% of my hiring is all women. That's on target. But let's say if I'm talking about an ambition or over exceeding that, so let's say 80%, if I'm able to deliver 80% of my new hires to be women, then I've overachieved my target. And it has to be that simplistic and that clear to both the line manager and then the employee. And once you've had that commitment conversation, then it's easy to keep a check. Either you do it mid-year or you do it every quarter. Depends on what the culture is like on performance management. But I think that's one of the best ways to drive performance management. If you drive performance management based on the number of hours the employee has been online, and you constantly keep a look at your laptop, oh, meri team online hai ki nahi, and if they're not online, then that means that they're not doing their job. Then I think that it's going to be a very unhealthy space, and we're never going to be able to measure productivity. So if you hold the individual accountable, you have a clear conversation, and then you have a clear conversation when those things have not been delivered. I think that's the best ways to drive performance management, and it has to work both ways. Meaning, you reward the individual when they've done well, and then you have a tough conversation when the individual has not met the objectives. But the starting point has to be, the objectives have to be clear between the person and their line manager in order to drive the right outcomes. That's one of the models I can share right away.
Thank you. Rizwan, your thoughts on this?
Just adding on to what Madiha said, I also feel that the last 5-6 months have also highlighted one of the burning issues is that how the line managers take it, and a number of organizations have done trainings on that, have done coaching of the line managers, and this is still for me at KE even is a major challenge, and something we would like to do and continue is how to develop that kind of skills in the managers, and change that kind of a mindset which requires their subordinates to just spend 9 to 6 and be available, be visible. So they have to be given the right kind of coaching and training, which should make them able to handle people working from home. And even when people are returning to office, the way they evaluate and the way they give feedback and the way they evaluate performance should now change, and that should be should go to the than on the presence of somebody. So that is one thing which I think for the HR fraternity and specifically for us at KE to do is to prepare. We have a large population, so prepare our line managers to be able to measure performance on these bases.
The performance management and how to measure. And very nice what Madiha said, what you measure can be improved, what you don't measure, you cannot improve. So what we moved on towards is actually more deliverables. Focus is on deliverables. Focus is not how they are executed right now. And focus is that how and when, how efficiently, with minimum resources and the use of time, something is done. And something is done considerably well. And then the execution part of it now is mostly left to that manager or to that executive in charge. So I believe lots of things have changed, and I really like that fact that lots of people have asked the questions on these three areas that we have discussed already. For those of you who have been throughout the summit from the first minute, or those who have joined just before this, or you joined in this conversation, everyone, when you leave a conference that you attend a seminar, you attend a meeting you go to, you have one thing that you would remember. What would be that one thing from this summit? Think hard and then write it there in the chat section. Let's see what is those key takeaways that you will take with you from this moment onwards. And this is that actionable insight that we're talking about. Let it not be a conversation that you attended on a weekend because you were curious or you were excited or you just wanted to network, online virtual network. Let it be around what is that one thing that you want to do, you want to practice, you have learned or you have been inspired with, that you will now put into action as you go back to work. Let's start seeing those as they're piling up. Yep, keep them coming. And I'm going to go through these. So belief, love, and passion. Okay, motivational, energetic information, dedicated. Known is unknown. Every hurdle is an opportunity. Very important. Very nicely done, Nayab. Agile mindset is important. Focus, consultation, communication. Yeah, over communicate. That's what I learned as well. There is no second thought about it. The more transparent you are, the more in touch with your team, with your supervisors, with everyone, your key stakeholders you are in this virtual world now, actually you are taking the uncertainty factor down. People are more in touch, I believe, than they were before, because you're doing lots of meetings, briefs and debriefs, and this is very important. So yes, over communicate. Empathy, upskilling, what you start measuring gets done. Very important. So yeah, so probably you guys will go back and start putting in some kind of KPIs or OKRs and start monitoring those deliverables. And there's a methodology behind it. There is some method to this madness, and there is a ton of literature available online for you to go through and learn from it. Lots of people are saying agile. That's very nice. Performance management, very nice. Okay. There's a need within the HR fraternity to transform and demonstrate a learner mindset. Well, I believe not just HR fraternity, any place, any function that you are. As long as you are perpetually curious, you're open to learn, you will evolve. That's the law of nature, right? Everything is changing, all of us. So do the businesses and processes and performance systems. There's nothing which is perfect. Everything evolves. So 5+3 rule is quite insightful. Thank you. Clarity in every aspect of business, particularly communication. Being social while being socially distant. Very nice. Duty of care for all. Okay, change is the only permanent thing, so be ready and adopt it ASAP. Good. Not only employees, but for all stakeholders, direct and indirect. So this is very nice. All of you who are putting in all these great comments about your key takeaways. So don't just put this right there because you heard something. Go and explore it. Go and connect with these wonderful people, the speakers that you actually heard today, and learn more from them. Learn from people who have done this, who have practiced this, and you might fail at it, but you should be open to embrace it and go and experiment. It may or may not work, as we just saw the example from Shell, but that earlier they had a different policy, and then they moved and changed the policy actually to adapt with the changing times, the changing demands actually. And so before I actually move on to the next session, and I invite Zahid Saab to come on the stage, I would like to know, and please keep those key takeaways coming. So this doesn't mean that you shouldn't stop writing, because whatever you are writing is also getting registered in the minds of others. So it's very highly likely that I have not thought of many key takeaways that you have thought of, but you have written it there, and now I'm registering that in my mind as well. Oh yeah, soft skills very important. Oh yes, how you can be as an advisor to many of your peers. So moving on, I would like to thank the honorable panelists for sharing their pearls of wisdom. And with your wisdom and experience, I believe you all had a lot of opportunity of learning of different ways you're tackling these challenges. So thank you, Madiha and Rizwan, for joining us. And thank you, wonderful audience. That's it from my session for the time being. And I now move on and I hand over the baton to Zaid Saab. And now we have a short video clip as well, I believe, for you that will be now played. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.